Hello everyone, welcome to the daily news protocol of the Hindu newspaper analysis contributed by the Vishnu IS Academy. Today we are going to see the news articles of the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper for the date 4th April 2022. Listed are the topics to be discussed for today. If you can see the first topic, the WHO pauses COVAXIN supply of UN bodies. For your reference, there are the page numbers of the Delhi edition of news articles, and the syllabus covered is mentioned in the table itself. Moving on to the first topic, the COVAXIN. What is COVAXIN? COVAXIN is nothing but the vaccine used to treat the COVID-19. So recently, what is the news is that the World Health Organization has paused the supply of COVAXIN via UN bodies. Why? Why? Because there are some deficiencies, GMO deficiencies, goods manufacturing operations deficiencies are there in the COVID-19 production, the COVAXIN production. So, considering that, if we can study about the COVAXIN, the vaccine is produced by the Bharat Biotech. So, as an emergency production, it was earlier given the permission under EUL, emergency permission, that is given by the WHO. But now, when there are researches conducted, there are identified some deficiencies in its production. But Bharat Biotech, the manufacturer, is claiming that there are no such deficiencies in the quality of the vaccine. Yes, it is also correct. The Bharat Biotech is claiming that COVAXIN is very much effective and there are no such deficiencies in its productivity. But there are some little subtle manufacturing deficiencies, right? So, in this backdrop, if we can study about any other vaccines, there is some other vaccine called COVAX. It is recently produced by the Serum Institute. Recently, the board NTAG, the organization NTAGI, National Technical Advisory Group on Immunization, has given permission, and also it is being implemented for the age group of 12 to 17 persons, like the age group of 12 to 17. So that's why it is also one more vaccine that is suitable for the COVID-19, and it is recommending, that NTAGI is recommending to incorporate this COVAX under the National Vaccination Program, right? Moving forward, if we can consider in this backdrop, if we can consider the concept vaccination, the basic phenomenon, the basic mechanism that works behind the vaccines, we should learn that concept. There is some mechanism, the biological mechanism behind this is nothing but the immunity. So, if you can learn the process of immunity, what is immunity? Immunity is nothing but the biological mechanism that prepares our body to protect our body from the outer pathogens. It is a mechanism, biological mechanism in our bodies. So, if we can consider it, this is our body. Let us assume a pathogen has entered our body. What happens? Whenever a pathogen enters our body, our immune system will be activated. So, as a response to this pathogen, there will occur some immune response. What is it? Immune response is nothing but the activation of immune cells. Those are nothing but the white blood cells, lymphocytes, CD8+ cells, CD4+ cells and antibodies. All these cells which play active role in the immune response will get activated with the entry of the pathogen. So, this is nothing but called as immune response. Under this, some cells like CD8+, CD4+ and antibodies, these are called as lymphocytes, one of the kind of white blood cells, WBC. So, all these cells will get produced. They will reach till the target cells wherever the pathogen affected the cell. So, it will identify the defective cells, and these cells will kill these defective cells. That is the natural mechanism present in our body. But you may get a doubt, if that type of natural mechanism is present in our body, why we are getting any disease, why we are getting affected and why you are getting suffered? Why? Because the response initiated, activated because of this pathogen would not be sufficient sometimes. If it is sufficient, it will reduce and cure the disease. That will be sufficient. If we can consider, if anyone gets the common cold caused by the influenza virus, there is a saying that the influenza will be recovered within 7 days with medicine, within 1 week without any medicine. Both are the same. Why? Because this type of immune response will work in such a conditions. But if the pathogen is strong enough, if our body is not able to fight against it, these defective cells will get higher, and this immune response would not be sufficient to cure that disease. This is the natural mechanism. And coming to the COVID-19 virus, the SARS-CoV-2, the SARS-CoV-2, it is the virus that causes the COVID-19 disease. It is the pathogen, right? While entering into the body, it activates the immune response. But here what happens is, specifically with this virus, it will mistakenly activates the hyperimmunity. Mistakenly it will activate the immunity, the hyperimmunity will get activated. Because of that, the immune response would be resulted more than the amounts the body requires. So, in that process, the cytokines would be produced in a huge amounts. What are cytokines here? These are nothing but small proteins that will activate the production of the immune response cells, which are these. Clear? So, these cytokines will activate the production of these cells, these immune memory cells, response cells. But as the amount of cytokines is very much higher, what is the function of these cells? Destruction of the cells, destruction of the body affected cells in our body. So, as there are huge number of cytokines, they will excessively work on the defective cells, and that's how it will damage the affected organ of the body. In our case, that is lungs. Clear? So, that's how the cytokine storm, as there are huge number of cytokines are being produced because of the response of this virus, it is called as cytokine storm. Now, you understand the mechanism behind it, right? Because of the huge amount of cytokines, it will activate the immune cells, and it will excessively work on the cells of the defective organ. Here the organ is lungs. So the tissues and cells of the lung itself will get affected. If those cells will get affected, the recovery will be very slower, and there will be lifetime sufferings and lifetime damage will remain in those lungs or any other organ of the body. That is the case with the COVID-19. And now, if we can consider the vaccine, what is the role played by the vaccine here? We have seen the natural mechanism, and we have seen the dominative mechanism of the COVID-19. If we can consider the vaccine, what vaccine does here? Vaccine is nothing but an agent that activates our body immune system. It is the function of vaccine is also the same as the pathogen, but the vaccine creates the immune response in sufficient amounts. That's why whenever the vaccine is injected into the body, the sufficient amounts of immune response will release the sufficient amounts of the memory cells, the antibodies, the cytokines, everything will get produced, secreted here also, but in sufficient amounts. So that's why it will create some memory cells in our body, which will be stored in our body. Then that's how the vaccine will prepare our body. Whenever in future our body is getting affected with a real pathogen, these memory cells will immediately come to the point and will kill that pathogen. That is the mechanism that works behind the vaccines. Clear? So that's why as our body is already ready, having all these immune response cells, it will immediately kill that pathogen whenever it enters into our body before it damaging our body organisms called lungs. Clear? That's how the vaccine will work in any case of disease, not even in the COVID-19. We will take so many vaccines in so many diseases. So everywhere the mechanism, the phenomenon behind the vaccine is this. Moving forward, if we can see the vaccine types. Clear? Before going to the vaccine types, there are some different types of immunities. If you are going to learn those immune responses, there are two types basically, the natural and acquired. So if we see the types of immunity, there are mainly two types in immunity. The natural and acquired. What are these? Natural is that is acquired, that is present in our body naturally by birth. It is also called innate immunity. It will be present in our body by birth. Clear? The acquired immunity, there are two types in the acquired immunity. There are also natural and artificial. Clear? The natural acquired immunity is of two types. There are passive and active. Why we are studying is, you will come to know in the next minute, there is a type of immunity which is acquired by the vaccine. We are going to learn that. So if we can consider the passive natural acquired immunity, it is acquired by the mother milk. by the mother milk, the baby will get the antibodies directly into his body. That's why it is acquired. That's why it is natural. Clear? So, the antibodies will be directly transferred to the kid's body through the mother milk. Clear? And if we can see the active natural acquired immunity, the antibodies will get produced later after the onset of one disease into the human body in lifetime. Like if you can see some examples like smallpox and chicken pox. Like in these diseases, in the first instance of the disease, the antibodies produced in that case will live for longer, permanently in our body. So that's how that type of immunity will be called as active natural acquired immunity. As well, if you can see the artificial, there are also passive and active. Passive would be, it is artificial, right? These are natural. These are produced within our body, either through mother milk, either through a disease, onset of a disease. But here it is artificial. We will give the antibodies artificially, externally. Here, any type of transfer of antibodies into a body, into a patient's body, is nothing but called as passive artificial acquired immunity. Any example for this can be hepatitis B. The treatment of hepatitis B, one of the treatment can be this also. The transfer of antibodies will activate the immune system and will prepare our body to get cured. Coming here, it is the main area of our topic today, the vaccines. With the vaccines, the type of immunity acquired will be the active artificial acquired immunity. Now, I hope you won't forget this term. Clear? So, with the vaccine, we will get active acquired artificial immunity. You will get questions like this in your preliminary exam. So, that is the type of immunity that is acquired by the vaccine. If we see the mechanism of vaccination, we have seen the immune response of vaccine, right? Because of vaccines, the immune cells will get activated, that will prepare our body, that will produce some memory cells, which will produce antibodies immediately by the immediate entrance of the pathogen into the body. So, regarding the COVID-19, if we see types of vaccines, there are several types of vaccines produced in these past 2 to 3 years, 2 years, nearly 2 years, right? So, there are attenuated vaccines. What are the attenuated vaccines? Attenuated means the weakened. Weakened means the vaccine will be treated with some heat or chemicals so that it will get weakened, but the particles, the attributes of that vaccine, the properties of that vaccine will be sufficient enough to activate our bodily immune response. So, what happens here is the vaccine, the real vaccine will be taken here, it will be weakened. The capacity of this vaccine to produce the disease will be suppressed by some treatments like heat and chemicals and that. So, that is why the weakened vaccine will be introduced into the body. Example for that is measles vaccine. And if we can consider the inactivated vaccine, what is the inactivated vaccine? It is nothing but the killed vaccine. The vaccine will be entirely killed by some treatments. Then, but here also the capacity of the vaccine to activate our bodily response, immune response will be sufficient enough. So that's why the remains of that vaccine will be made, and one of the good example of that is COVAXIN, which is manufactured by the Bharat Biotech, which I hope all of our Indians were vaccinated with this vaccine, right? And also there is mRNA vaccine. What is mRNA vaccines? mRNA vaccine is nothing but the production of a vaccine containing the nucleic acid RNA that will be surrounded with some lipid cover. Like that, an artificial vaccine will an artificial virus will be produced, giving that the nucleic acid mRNA. So that is the specific feature of this vaccine. Example of this is Moderna and Pfizer, the USA vaccines of COVID-19, and the viral vector vaccine. What is the viral vector vaccine? The vaccine, the genetic material of the vaccine will be transferred to a viral vector, another viral vector. Clear? Another viral vector. So by transferring the original genetic material into another viral vector will deteriorate its viral functions, the original viral functions. So that's how either the other viral vector and the original genetic material of the real virus would not affect our genome, would not affect our human genome. Not getting confused here, right? The pathogen, it is the genetic material of pathogen, it is outer vaccine, outer virus. So both will be merged into one cell, one organism, and that will be turned into a vaccine, and that will be injected into the person. One such example to that is Covishield, Sputnik V, the Russia vaccine of COVID-19. And there is one more important vaccine called DNA vaccine. It is a first such vaccine developed by India, ZyCoV-D, Zydus Cadila. The Zydus Cadila company has developed this type of vaccine, and it is the first type of its vaccine to not to use the injection or any needle. It is needle free vaccine. Remember, it is the needle free vaccine, the ZyCoV-D. What happens here is there will be some structure like this, some tropics, some small tropics will be in this. It whenever it is put on the surface of the skin, an object here at the end, some tropics, some structure like this will be here. Whenever it is put on the surface of the skin, the injection will get entered into the body directly without using any needle. So it is the importance of this type of vaccine. So these are all the types of vaccines, not all the types of vaccines. These are types of vaccines regarding the COVID-19 only. Clear? Moving forward, let us see next news article. AFSPA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, 1958. What is it? It is nothing but giving the extra powers to the armed personnel, police personnel, to maintain any disturbed area. If any area in our India is considered as a disturbed area, some such powers, some special powers will be given to the armed personnel under this act. So now some concerns are getting raised that is this constitutionally valid Of course, there are some articles behind this, but the legality or the efficiency or the right way of implementation of this act is being questioned in recent days. Why? Because it is implemented in northeastern states. In recent days, in recent past 1 week and from so many years also, there are happening some insurgencies and protests and strong protests. The recently happened is 13 civilians in the Nagaland were killed because of the insurgencies happened as against this act. So the relaxation in AFSPA is very much needed. Clear? So because of that, the state, the union government has announced some relaxations. In the number of disturbed areas. That were earlier announced under this act. So that is some relaxation announced. Clear? So if we can see the definition, meaning of disturbed area and the scope of this act, any state or a part of state can be declared as a disturbed area under this act. And the armed forces can make preventive arrests, search premises without any warrant, and they can shoot the persons and they can kill the persons too. Like these extraordinary powers will be given to the armed persons under this act. So, seeing if we can consider the map, the AFSPA is being implemented. Almost all the 7 states of the northeastern are being implemented under this act, and also the Jammu and Kashmir is also being implemented with this act. So, recently Nagaland, Assam and Manipur, in these 3 states, Nagaland, Assam and Manipur, in these 3 states, the union government has announced some relaxations in the number of disturbed areas. Okay, if we can consider any proclamation similar to this act, there are some emergencies in states under the Article 356. There is President rule right in Constitution. So, the proclamation of emergency will be similar to this. Why? Because under this act or under this rule, the state legislature, the surrounding powers will be captured by these authorities. Clear? So, that is why the implementation of this act is similar to the President's rule, and also martial law under the Article 34. What is the Article 34? It is nothing but the appointment of some special or giving some special powers to the personnels and army personnels to maintain any disturbances in any area of India. So, under that, the martial law, the AFSPA will get some similar functionalities with that. Any states of seas will also come into this category. So, in this regard, if we can consider any benefits of this act, or if we can consider any conclusion out of it, do we really need AFSPA in this present days, in this modern days? Do we really have to give those special powers to the armed forces? If we try to answer that question, the insurgencies, if the insurgencies of those disturbed areas will be able to controlled in an effective way, no such stringent laws will be useful. So, this is still some debating point, some confronting point. So, we will hope there will be some relaxations in these acts, and all the insurgencies will get diluted in a near future. Moving forward, the marital rape exception in IPC. What is the marital rape? Is there any constitutionality behind this? Is there any legality behind this? Is there any exception behind this, or is there any punishment being for such crimes like marital rape? Why all these questions are being raised is because in recent days there was a case filed in the Karnataka. In Karnataka, a married woman has filed a case against a criminal rape case against her own husband, claiming that she is being faced some repeated sexual assaults for which she is being suffered. Who will address her sufferings? So, to get some justice to that pain, she reached some sessions court, but that husband claimed that there will be no legalities for such cases. Why? Because the sections under IPC, the 375 and 376, will not quote any crime like marital rape. Of course, these sections are to punish any such incidents like rape and all. But there is no such claim in that section like marital rape. Why? Because if we can consider in history the origin of these sections of IPC, in 1736, the then Chief Justice Matthew Hale, the Chief Justice, has declared that any such criminal assaults, sexual assaults cannot be claimed. Why? Because the marriage itself is an understanding between the two persons. So, the woman becoming a wife is earlier accepted that alliance. As she accepted that marriage alliance, she can't claim that as a crime. That was the earlier understanding right from the 1736 onwards. The Chief Justice, the then Chief Justice, had also declared this very clearly. But the days have changed. The women awareness bill has encouraged and increased a lot. So, coming to the 1991, the specifications and the understandings of the same government, the UK government, has reconsidered the same claim, and now the UK has declared that marital rape is crime. There won't be any exception to that from now onwards. They have announced in 1991. But our IPC, as our IPC was drafted and taken into action from the periods of the British, the same rule which was considered in the 1736 is still the same in our IPC. We didn't do any changes in that section. So, considering this, is there any necessity to introduce or incorporate such crimes in our legal books, in our sections? So, that is one concern here. And also coming to the constitutional rights giving to a woman or a person or to a wife. There are some fundamental rights like Article 14 right to equality. Article 15, prohibition of discrimination. Article 19, right to freedom of speech and expression. And also Article 29, right to life, right to privacy. All these will be considered while considering the assault of the married women. So, in recent days, our justices, our courts are reconsidering this as a crime and considering the equality of women in the marriage alliance. If we can give importance to such clauses, the woman would be, the married woman would be considered as a subordinate to her own husband. No such inequality can be considered by the higher legal authorities of our nation. So that's why it is a discussing point in recent days. If we can consider any judgments so far in this case, earlier we have discussed a case, right, that is called as Hrishikesh Sahu versus State of Karnataka. In this case, recently Karnataka High Court has declared that the marital rape exception of IPC should be reconsidered and the women should be given the equal opportunities to get justice. That is the nice and promising point declared by the High Court of Karnataka in that case. And if we can consider the Independent Thought versus Union of India 2017. This case has declared that earlier, let me tell you one point behind this. In IPC, under the sections 357 and 356, 375 and 376, this case has declared that the marital rape can be considered if the wife age is below the 15 years. Below 15 years. Clear? But now, after considering this case, the courts have given the verdict that this 15 years has raised till 18 years. Clear? So, the marital rape will be considered if the wife is below the age of 18. That is the verdict of this case. And also, if we can consider any other references, in 1991 in UK, under the R versus R, it is named like this to hide the identity of the person who had filed that case. So, this case is famous for 1991 in which as we have discussed earlier, the marital rape is considered as a crime. Clear? Considering all these, there is a necessity to raise concerns and also to frame any new laws and also to amend our IPC sections to consider the marital rape as a heinous crime and to not to consider it as an exception. Clear? Moving forward, the Karnataka High Court took a similar view like this as we have discussed earlier. Our next topic for today is making the groundwater visible. There are concerns that in recent days the amounts of groundwater are depleting and also the quality of the groundwater are also being deteriorated. If we can go deep into this subject, the existing approach of dealing with surface water and groundwater independently has severe limitations. Why? Because the spread of groundwater all over the world and specifically in our India is very much different depending on the regional specifications. And also there are some contaminations in the groundwater also. And if we can consider any resilience of the groundwater, it is much more beneficial than the surface water to hold the amounts of the water and also to help the irrigation and agriculture and cropping patterns. So, considering all these beneficiary points of the groundwater, we are going to conduct the World Water Day, the March 22. The theme of this year's World Water Day is groundwater making the invisible visible. Facts like these are important. Moving forward, the uses, the benefits of the groundwater are nothing but the sanitation systems. It helps in the agriculture, it helps in the industry, and also it helps in the climate change adaptations. So, the role in all these regards of groundwater is very much important, and also it has high storage capacity, and also it is more resilient in mitigating any disasters. So, there are two such global initiatives in which the groundwater is to be protected and the measures to be taken. The International Conference on Groundwater, Key to the Sustainable Development Goals, has raised the concern regarding the groundwater, and also the UN Water Summit on groundwater also gave some recommendations to protect and clean the groundwaters. If we can consider the Indian scenario, the Central Water Commission and Central Groundwater Board has put some targets to limit the groundwater usage till 70% of the replenishment recharge of the groundwaters. And also Niti Aayog also has put some target 70% usage. The usage of groundwater should be limited till 70% only, and the target should be achieved by the year 2030. Why 70% is highlighting here? If we can consider the present scenarios in India, the groundwater usage is 89% for the irrigation purposes and 9% for the domestic purposes and 2% for the industrial purposes. So, that much importance is there for the groundwater in India, and the excessive usage of groundwater will affect our environmental balance. So, that is why the targets are given here. And there is one committee called Mihir Shah Committee. Mihir Shah Committee, which was appointed in 2016, has recommended to merge these two bodies, the Central Water Commission and the Central Groundwater Board, to merge these two committees to give some water framework, some integrated water framework to work on this area unitedly. Clear? And also, if we can consider any contaminants of the groundwater, there are fluoride, iron, salinity is the main concerning point, and also nitrate, arsenic. All these are the major contaminants of the groundwater. Clear? All these are the points to be remembered for this topic. And with this, we are ending the session for today. I hope you revised all the current affairs parts we are discussing till now. Have a happy preparation, and let's meet on the next interesting session in tomorrow. Thank you.